And Wesley relapsed again, and Fezzik took the wrong turn, and Buttercup's horse threw a shoe, and the night behind them was filled with the crescendoing sound of pursuit. Fezzik's mistake came first. He was in the lead, a position he tried to avoid whenever possible, but here he had no choice, since Inigo was losing strength with each stride, and the lovers, well, they just sopped back and forth to each other about eternity. Which meant Fezzik, the ideal friend, the loyal follower, the lover of rhymes, perhaps not the most brilliant of fellows, but certainly the most devoted bringer-up of any rears you might mention, found himself facing the most hateful, the most insidious bewilderment ever conceived of by the mind of man. A fork in the road. It's not actually a road, Toad, he reassured himself. It's more a path. Wrath. Nothing to cause fret. Sweat. They were on their way to Florin Channel, where the great pirate ship Revenge was waiting to scoop them up and head them all toward happiness. So relax, Fezzik, he told himself. Treat the escapade as a lark. Hark. A memory that would in the future bring warm smiles. After all, it was not even remotely a large fork. It was, if you will, petite, sweet, a mere jog in the lane. Pain. Fezzik almost made himself believe that, and then reality took hold, because it was still a fork, something that required thought, wisdom, a plan, and he knew he could screw up something like that any time. Me here, and no, this is not an interruption, just a note to explain I have gone to a lot of extra work to make this perfect, as you know, and I didn't want anyone writing in to point out that screw up was anachronistic. It isn't. It's an ancient Turkish wrestling expression, a shorter version of corkscrew up, a hold that brings pain of such magnitude that death soon follows. To corkscrew down, of course, has been illegal for centuries. Everywhere. The fork came closer. They were surrounded by trees everywhere, always thickening, and the brutes behind were clearly gaining. And even though the fork was indeed it had to be there for a reason. And that reason, Fezzik believed, was that one way led to the channel and the waiting Revenge, while the other led elsewhere. And since the sea was their only profitable destination, elsewhere, no matter where else it was the same as doom. Fezzik turned quickly to ask Inigo his opinion, but Inigo was bleeding so terribly now, the bouncing of the stallion not being helpful when you have recently been slit inside. Fezzik instinctively reached back, grabbed his weakening comrade, pulled him onto his horse to see what he might do to save him. And while he was reaching, the fork was on them, and Fezzik wasn't even watching as his horse took the left turning, which turned out to be, alas, toward elsewhere. Hi, Fezzik said, once he had Inigo in front of him. Are you excited? I'm as excited as can be. Inigo was too weak for reply. Fezzik studied Inigo's wound, pushed one of Inigo's hands deeper into it, hoping to somehow help stop the bleeding. It was clearly up to him to save Inigo now, and to do that he'd have to get him to a good blood clogger. Surely the Revenge would employ such a fellow. From Inigo, this. A groan. I agree completely, Fezzik said, wondering how the trees could become so much thicker so very quickly. It was amazing. They were almost like a wall now in front of them. I'm also sure that just past this last wall of trees is Florin Channel, and all our dreams will come true. From Inigo, the same, only less of it. Then his fingers managed to clutch Fezzik's great hand. I go to face my father now. But Rugen is dead, so it was not a useless life. Beloved friend, tell me I did not fail. He was losing Inigo now, and as he held the wounded fencer in his arms, Fezzik knew few things, but one of them was this. Wherever the bottom of the pit was located, surely he was there now. Mr. Giant? He heard then. Fezzik wondered who Buttercup was talking to, until he realized that they had never actually been introduced. Oh, he had rendered her unconscious, kidnapped her, almost killed her, so you couldn't say they were unacquainted, but none of it was truly a formal how do you do. Fezzik, princess. Mr. Fezzik, she cried out louder than necessary, but it was just because at that moment her horse threw a shoe. Just Fezzik is fine, I'll know you mean me, he told her, watching her face in the moonlight. Never had he seen an equal. No one had. except at the moment she was not at her best, since not only was her horse behaving erratically, there was such pain behind her eyes. "What is wrong, Highness? Tell me so that I might help." "My Wesley has stopped breathing." Wrong, as usual, Fezzik realized. The pit is bottomless. He instinctively reached back, grabbed his breathless leader, pulled him onto his horse to see what he might do to save him, and while he was doing the reaching, the overburdened horse stopped. Had to, for there was now a wall of trees blocking any progress, and Inigo would not stop bleeding, and Wesley would not start breathing, and Buttercup would not stop staring at him, her face lit with the hope that of all the creatures left stomping the earth, he, Fezzik, was the only one that could save her beloved, and thereby stop her heart from shredding. Fezzik, at this heroic moment, knew what he wanted most to do: suck his thumb forever. But since that was out of the question, he did the next best thing. He made a poem. Fezzik's in trouble, bubble, bubble, his brain is just not in the pink, his mind is rubble, rub-a-dub-double, because everyone needs him to think. Great work, no question, considering he was carrying 2 almost corpses on his stopped horse while the princess was weeping, hoping for a miracle. Fezzik went for a different rhyme scheme, hopeful it would jog something useful. Great armed Fezzik, blocked by trees, forget that she is crying. Though lost, and that it's all your fault, forget that 2 are dying. Mighty Fezzik, strong of brawn, who most around think brainless, all you have to do is spawn a plan that will be painless. Fezzik the fearless, Fezzik the wise, Fezzik the wonder of the age, Fezzik who... The who is lost to time now, because it was at that moment of poetic inspiration that Prince Humperdinck's razor-sharp, metal-tipped arrow ripped through Fezzik's clothing on its way to his great heart. Once he realized they had taken the left turning, Prince Humperdinck knew they were his. He turned to Yellen, the chief enforcer of Florin, a finger to his lips. Yellen raised a hand, and the 50 trailing members of the brute squad slowed. The moon's perfect yellow dusted the thickening trees. Humperdinck could not help but stare at their beauty. Only the trees of Florin could interrupt, however briefly, a blood hunt. Was there any place on earth with such trees? Humperdinck wondered. No. Resoundingly no. They ranked among the treasures of the universe. During the prince's contemplative moment, Yellen gestured for the brute squad to get into their attack groups. The knifers here, the stranglers there, the crushers in between. The prince rounded the last small turning, and there in front of him, so beautifully framed by the perfect trees, was the death tableau. His weeping, runaway bride, the 2 still men on the buckling horse, held there in the arms of the giant. Damn, he told himself, if only I'd brought the royal sketcher. Well, he would just have to hold this in memory. In the prince's world, the world of scourge and pain, there was still great controversy who to initially attack. Should the nearest be selected, or should it be the leader? Clearly Wesley was that, but at the moment a frail one at best. And the other still man must have had power, since he had killed Rugen, not the easiest task. It was standard to leave the women for last. They were not expert at blood. They also whimpered and looked to the heavens for escape. Always good for chuckles around future campfires. Leaving the giant. The prince unsheathed his bow, selected his sharpest metal tip, made the insertion. He was a great archer, but at night, with moonlight and shadow, he was a good deal more. He had not missed a night kill in ever so long. An inhale for balance. A final smile to the trees. Then the pullback, the release, and the arrow was on its straight way. The prince held his breath until he saw the arrow rip the cloth of the giant at the heart site. The giant cried out loud in shock and fell backward off his horse. As he fell, Yellen led the brute charge, and the battle of the trees, brief though it was on. The 50 brutes at full cry charging the 3 men lying sprawled on the ground, the lone woman trying to somehow hold them all in her arms. As her attackers came eyeball close, Buttercup had this thought. If she had to die, what better way existed than with her true love in her arms and the beauty of her beloved Florinese trees covering her with their branches? Even as a child, nothing pleased her more than the glorious trees at the bottom of her farm. And when her chores for the day were done, that is where she went to wander so happily. What peace they gave, and they would continue to give that peace to her fellow Florinese forever. And time out. Can you believe that last paragraph? Buttercup's about to die, and she thinks of foliage? Horrible. Horrible. So do not hold your breath waiting for the stupid battle of the trees. I went nuts when I first read this. I'm like you, probably, zooming happily along, and Morgenstern was clearly a master of narrative, but right now I bet you're wondering this. What happened? My God, Fezzik shot in the heart, the 2 other guys drifting away, Buttercup trying to hold it all together while these 50 armed brutes come charging in. We all want to know what happened, right? Here's what you are not reading. 65 pages on Florinese trees, their history and importance. Morgenstern had already started, if you noticed. Just when he realizes he's got them, Prince Humperdinck does an entire dumb paragraph about trees. Even his Florinese publishers begged him to cut it. So, I don't care what grief those Morgenstern whizzes at Columbia give me. If ever anything needed getting rid of, it was this. Want to know why he put it in? It actually has to do with The Princess Bride, or rather, its success in Florin. Morgenstern was suddenly flush, so he went right out and bought this country house that was off by itself and abutted this huge government-owned forest preserve. He was indeed master of all he surveyed. However, what? Champions of the Table is raiding with a party of 7. Thank you for the raid, everybody. Hold on, there's a way to do shout-outs. Champions to the rescue. It's a Champions of the Table raid. Thank you for the raid. Chat died again. I didn't break it. B-Town did. Points fingers. Aw, I didn't mean to. I just bring heavy loving friends. Thank you for the love, B-Town. Too much beer and sausage. We broke it. I'm sorry, I brought the tavern with me. Okay, hold on. Story mode Steve. First time chat from Raider. Thank you. B-Town, we're at the very end of Princess Bride. So this is what we're doing. We're reading The Princess Bride. There are 2 introductions in this particular version of this book. There is also the first chapter of the long-lost sequel, which doesn't actually exist, which also has an introduction in front of that. So we just finished the introduction. Well, no, not just. We finished the introduction. Now we're into the sequel part of it, which didn't end up in interesting. So was the sequel scrapped? I don't really know. I think maybe he kind of got bored of it, sort of. I also think there is something a little bit satirical about this book, and so I think maybe he was just sort of like commenting on how that's a common thing where people put like the beginning chapter of a book, but then you have to then go and find the find the next book or whatever. Personally, I don't think the sequel ever existed. No, I don't think. I mean, I think probably a lot of people asked him for a sequel. Story mode Steve. My girlfriend literally just had me sit down and watch this movie earlier tonight. I was gonna say something and I forgot what it was. Novellas. Yeah, I think probably because this is something that I've encountered. I write something and then most of the feedback that I get from it is, so what happens next? What's the, like, are you going to write something after this, like a continuation of the story? I think it's just very common for people to ask for sequels. And so I think I read The Green Mile in novella format, which was great. Interesting. Because I've only ever seen The Green Mile as like a big, chunky book. So that's cool. But I think maybe for this, he's sort of trying to like placate people a little bit, maybe also commenting about like being a little bit satirical about people who put first chapters of the next book in, because he definitely does a lot of like foreshadowing sort of with it, of like what it's going to contain. Back in my day when I got them from B. Dalton Bookstore in the mall, no joke, had a subscription. That's cool. Ooh, my alarm's going off. So I had a question about the subscription. Was it a subscription specifically to the Green Mile novellas, or was it a subscription like to the bookstore where you could just get books on a regular basis? Because I haven't experienced that. Any Stephen King. Okay. So interestingly, Stephen King is mentioned in this book. In one of the in one of the introductions that I read tonight, but also in an introduction that I don't have in my version of this book, that one of the other viewers has. Yeah, they would hold anything back for you that was announced or released. Oh, that's cool. So like this, so to make sure that there would always be a copy of it that you could get, so that it doesn't like sell out really quickly or something. We've got a couple of pages left. Well, we've got like 25 pages left. It's 11 p.m. and I have not had dinner yet. And we've gone a little bit longer than I was planning. I'll let you be. Have a great night and enjoy the reading. I gotta let the dogs out. Enjoy your evening, Champs of the Table. Call it, finish it next week, and then talk about the next book. I think that's where I think we need to pass the raid along. I think that would be the best option for right now. Hi, LV. Thank you for joining us. Because there's still a lot more that I would want to read and talk about. Night Pete, hi Garden, hello LV. Because I do sort of want to like savor this. So part of me doesn't want it to end. But also I'm hungry. And chat is broken, so when you guys are typing stuff, I'm just reading it out loud and it's not showing up next to me. So I feel like maybe this is a good sign. Hi there. Thanks for joining our book club. If you'd like to join the conversation, I would love it if you would leave us a comment. And if you'd like to see more, check out the playlist.